we get started, I want you to take us back to the beginning of your stunt riding career and tell us just a little story about how you got started with stunt shows.
Okay, so I started hanging around the West Coast Connection guys early on and learning how to ride. And I went to the lot every day. And I think just from that, them seeing my dedication to the sport, me being there every day, you know, just having fun and enjoying the process. And I think they saw potential in me. So, you know, they invited me to do a show with them early on. And, you know, to me, I was nervous. You know, I never thought I'd even get close to even doing. I looked up to these guys. Like, I was like, man, there's no way I'll ever like get to that point where, you know, I'm doing shows with these guys, because that was like, you know, a few years into, actually like 2 years into stunt riding. And, you know, to get the invite from them, I was shocked. You know, I was like, no way. So, you know, I used to go to their shows all the time, just support and watch. And then Hollywood B, you know, old school West Coast Connection. He's like a brother, you know, asked if I wanted to join them on one of their shows. And I finally did. I think I made like $100, which is, to me, I was like, dude, getting paid to do what I like to do, like, hell yeah, you know. And he always looked out for me, giving me like, you know, free gloves, helmets, and stuff like that, you know, because they were the sponsored ones. And, you know, to me, that was huge, you know. So I always look back to those days and be like, damn, crazy how far I've came. But from then on, I think, you know, they saw potential, and, you know, they took me under their wing and was like, hey, you know, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have you come in towards the end, fill in, you know, because obviously I was limited to tricks, so I could only do so much. But there was some tricks I was really good at, and then there was some tricks that they weren't as good at that I was really good at. So I'd come in and fill in certain areas. And, you know, from there on, I think, you know, they liked the fact that I come and I give it my all, and then, you know, the crowd likes it. And, you know, I think once they saw that the crowd had liked me a lot, you know, they picked me up as a team for West Coast Connection. And then from there on, we started traveling and doing shows together as a team. And I was like, you know, super grateful throughout the whole thing, because, you know, I never really got paid to go somewhere to ride, you know. So experiencing that from the beginning was huge, because, you know, like, you know, when I was learning, I never thought that I would get paid to go ride and do what I like to do. Like, it's just.
So you say that you started doing stunt shows 2 years after you started stunt riding.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think set you apart from other new beginners that they saw in you? Like, what potential do you think they saw in you, and what potential do you see in newer riders that would make you consider them a good person for a show?
I think really me showing up every day. Like, I'm sure these guys probably drove past the lot quite a few times and saw me there by myself, you know. So like, when you see that in somebody, they have something different, you know what I mean? Like, they have a different connection to the sport, you know, because
like consistency.
Yeah, just being consistent and you know, showing up and doing the work, you know, every day. Because, you know, there's people that want it, but you never see them at the lot. Like, what do you expect? You know, like, you really think I'm gonna hire somebody that you don't ever see riding over somebody that you see at the lot every day, progressing and getting better? You know, like,
what other things skill wise? Because you weren't, like you were saying, you weren't the best and you couldn't do all the tricks that they could do. What would you see in a new rider?
Well, first of all, like, when they first started me off with these shows, first thing they tell me is like, hey, 50%. You know, it's like, what do you mean by that? You know, it's like, no, you're only going to do 50% of what you can do at the lot. Like, don't go out there giving it 100, which I used to do. It was scary because I was that rider that was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to try to hand drag when I literally just learned it at the lot not too long ago. And those can get really sketchy on a sport bike, trying to hand drag, your bike gets all squirrely, you know. So, you know, that's the first thing they tell me. It's like, hey, we're going to ride at 50%, you know, and that's all there is to it. Like, don't try to go too crazy. And that's another thing with like shows. I've learned that the crowd's going to be pumped about the stupidest stuff you do. Like, you could do a hand drag and it's cool to some people, but when somebody's, you know, riding past you on a Christ, the crowd freaking goes nuts, you know? So it's like, you can learn all this crazy stuff, but the crowd seem to like the most basic stuff that you can imagine. Like, you know, just standstill burnouts, stuff like that. Like, crowd likes, you know, simple stuff. So you start learning that when you do shows, it's not about, you know, let me see how the hardest trick I can do. It's more of
crowd pleasers.
Yeah, just crowd pleasers. You start figuring out what the crowd likes, and you start doing those tricks more often, you know. And I learned from all that, you know, when you start off a show, you want to start it off slow and then get to the more difficult tricks towards the end. The crowd pleasers.
We'll get into that on how to organize your routine. But so your first tip, and you always say this to me when I'm doing a show, is 50, right at 50%. And I totally get that because it's true. You can't go out there and pushing yourself because you're going to fuck up because you're nervous. You're in front of a crowd. How do you change that mindset from letting go of your ego? Because it really is an ego thing. And I noticed that with myself, where I never feel good enough with my stunt riding skills. So I want to do my absolute hardest trick in the show, even though I may have not perfected it. And it really is a mindset shift. And that's something I've learned this past year, of not really giving a fuck about my friends and the people that know stunt riding, and caring more about the crowd pleasing. The crowd doesn't understand what I'm doing. And it's almost like when I would push myself back in the day on the sport bike, mostly, I would push myself really hard to do hard tricks because I'm so worried about what people in the stunt scene think about me when they're not even half the crowd, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So I think you got to think, I mean, in a business mindset, you got to think like, you know, liability. Like, you know, like obviously you know your potential and what you're capable of. And, you know, when you're riding at 100%, you tend to push stuff to the limit, you know, and then it's like, at that point, it's like, oh, it's 50-50. I could crash, or it could work out and the crowd's going to love it. Would you rather take that risk, or would you want to just take it easy, make it home safe, and the crowd's still going to be happy? You know? So it's not a demolition derby. Like, you're not, like, there's no point of going out there and wrecking the crowd. Honestly, I mean, you don't look professional and you just look dumb, honestly. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, that stuff is not going to happen even if you ride 50%, because accidents happen. But, you know, to me, I just, you know, I'd rather be safe than sorry. And that's just speaking from my experience, you know, like, this is nothing that anybody has to do, you know, it's just, you know, that's why I've made it this long and this far, being able to do shows and that kind of stuff. It's just, you know, being able to control yourself.